Welcome to Two Women in Crypto, a weekly podcast birthed on a whim by two women who are excited about the cryptocurrency landscape and have a shared passion about empowering others to step into the digital, tokenized world of the future. We offer tips, tricks, and our own individual insights as to how to begin to navigate this shift. We are not financial advisors nor experts. We are just here to encourage you to look at the possibilities. So welcome to the future. You're right on time.
Good morning, everybody. This is Andrea from Two Women in Crypto. Kelly had a prior engagement this morning, so I'm going to be bringing you the news this week. And let's just talk about what's going on because there is a lot happening with crypto regulation. We have the FSOC Oversight Committee and just, again, more highlights from the World Economic Forum conference that just happened in Davos, Switzerland. But just wanted to start off with some fun news. So I was perusing some older news this morning, and y'all remember Michael Jordon from the Chicago Bulls? He was like one of the best basketball players like ever to play. And he is releasing an NFT line on the XRP ledger. So just kind of wanted to talk about that because I've still been getting a lot of questions, between like what's the difference with Ripple, and XRP ledger. And I just want everybody to remember that Ripple is a centralized company that built software technology for cross-border payments, on-demand liquidity, also for, just for payments and central bank digital currencies. The XRP ledger is a decentralized blockchain. So somebody like Michael Jordon, developers, all these different applications are being built on top of the XRP ledger, which is decentralized in nature. And we know, especially with doing deep dives with Ethereum, Solana, some of these blockchains are more centralized than others. And, just here we go. It's just we're looking at the adoption. We're looking to see who is building on these blockchains. And, again, I think over this year into 2024, 2025, we're really going to see who the winners are and how that's going to emerge. But just wanted to kind of, share that news with you for adoption. And as well, like, when I looked at the library case that went to appeal with the SEC, the SEC sued library for selling an unregistered security. And in the initial court findings, the SEC won because library sold its token directly to investors. Now, when those investors turned around and sold their sold library tokens to the secondary market, which is retail investors, which is us, that is considered not to be a security. So what does that mean with the SEC Ripple lawsuit case? Is probably going to be very similar. So secondary markets that use XRP, and it's not just retail investors. We're talking SBI Remit uses it for cross-border payments, and a lot of different banks in Japan, the MENA district, South America, just, goes on and on and on. Those would be considered secondary markets. The interesting thing that I wanted to note as well is that when the library case ended and they won the appeal, even though library is in bankruptcy, the token itself jumped over 140%. So what will happen when XRP gets declared not a security? What will happen to the price of XRP? Speculating here, will it go up 140%? Will it go up 300%? Time will tell. We know Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple is pretty much saying, hey, in the first half of 2023, they are looking to see this lawsuit coming to finality. So good news there. And, just wanted to make that announcement. So the other thing I wanted to touch base on, and I actually took some time and I put together a little highlight video that's about 9.5 minutes to kind of give some highlights for the World Economic Forum's meeting at Davos that just passed. And I was listening to the Microsoft CEO, Satya Nadella, and he was actually talking about redesigning human lives and the way people are going to live, in this fourth industrial revolution. And the World Economic Forum is creating its metaverse called the Global Collaboration Village. And the link is in the description, as well as the YouTube video for redesigning human lives and the way that people are going to live. And, it's just, I just want everybody to take a moment and just step back and just be like, are you ready to live and work in the metaverse? Are you ready to put these headsets on and have a corporate meeting with your coworkers in the metaverse? Because this is the future of work that the World Economic Forum is kind of selling this narrative with Microsoft, with Accenture, with Apple, with all of these companies are pushing, kind of like the reshaping of our society in the fourth industrial revolution. And again, I can see people kind of saying like, Andrea, never going to happen. I don't know. We look at the advances of artificial intelligence, algorithms, drones, robots. Is it not going to happen? I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but knowledge is power. And I really want us to be able to steer our ship into a decentralized internet. Because when I listen to these folks and they're saying the new internet is going to be based all around the metaverse, all around a virtual reality, an augmented reality to live in this digital world, it's so important that we don't forget the physical world. And maybe some of us, I know a lot of you listening are a little bit older, think about the children. Do we want our children, as soon as they can, to put these VR headsets on and to live in a virtual reality world? I don't know. But this I do know. I was listening to Raoul Paul, and he was saying, I cannot stress this enough. The concepts of what is happening with artificial intelligence and the speed of which humanity will change. Technological growth is happening exponentially, and we're going to see changes, like massive changes, a restructuring, redefining, reimagining education, science, creative content writers, marketing. Everything is going to change. The way that we live, the way that we work, the way that we create value. It's all going to be based, within some form of artificial intelligence. And I think like when I think about the exponential growth of artificial intelligence and how quickly Chat GPT can learn, I really want us to kind of sit with this and try to wrap our heads around it, because the faster artificial intelligence learns, the harder it's going to be for us humans to wrap our head around how quickly the world is going to change. And I believe, and I love a lot of this technology, but again, there's a big difference between living in centralized systems where our current government is trying to, wrap their arms around this technology and control it, control the narrative, control what people hear and see and learn, and a decentralized world where we can still ask questions, have critical thinking, really important concepts. Because once all of this news and all of the media gets channeled, this is like all we would know. So we really want to make sure that as these centralized systems rise in power and they're going to try to take over, decentralized systems are being built, and there will be a way to opt out of these centralized systems. So I just want everybody to sit with this and know good things are happening. And this is going to be a conversation that Kelly and I will be continuing in the near future. Because I was looking at some of the legislation, and we have the Digital Services Act in the EU, and they're really coming hard, and they're going to delete hate speech, disinformation. But we have to ask the question, what do you consider hate speech? What do you consider disinformation? Because if disinformation is questioning the narrative, that's going against freedom of speech, right? We should be able to question the narrative. So I really want to keep an eye out on this Digital Services Act, because I was looking at some of the other, some of the other things I wanted to talk about, because censorship, even with the World Economic Forum, they labeled it clear and present danger. And I'm listening to the Congressman Moulton from Massachusetts. There was a person there from the New York Times. There was a past CNN news reporter that moderated, this panel. And again, they're talking about how disinformation attracts trust. Then people start to fracture. And this all goes on while we see like society's social fabric collapsing. But they never talk about how they shut down the world, for COVID, told us to stay home, don't worry about it. And at the same time, using this crisis to usher in the fourth industrial revolution with the algorithms, with the robots, with the drones, and changing society as we know it. Okay. And when I was listening to, one of the other European legislators from Prague speak, and she said that she met with Facebook and all the leaders in, advertising and in the media. And Facebook said during this meeting that the request to remove content from Facebook during the last couple of years, 90% of all inquiries came from the government. So the government all around the world is trying to sell you a story, sell you a narrative. Do you trust the government? Do you trust companies like Microsoft, who has been taking your data, monetizing your data without your permission, or being extremely manipulative and not really educating, the mass population on what this means? Because as these corporations have been collecting your data, they're feeding these machines to learn. And now we have ChatGPT. So I just want everybody to kind of sit with that, because I look at Microsoft, I look at BlackRock, I look at what they're pushing with the metaverse, what they're trying to push with online censorship. It's really, really concerning. But again, they are not counting in and adding in the human spirit. So if the goal of these folks is to clearly control the narrative and all of the news that we see, here at Two Women in Crypto, we're going to have laser focus on digital privacy and security and how to opt out of these centralized systems. Because when I listened to this Congressman Mullen from Massachusetts, especially right after the legislator from Prague was speaking about how the governments were asking for the content of removal, he just went right in and said, you know, it's really hard in America because we have a strong system of belief about freedom of speech. And it's kind of like an oxymoron because here in America, we see YouTube, we see Twitter, we see Facebook, especially, you know, personally, I was so censored when I was trying to educate people about the World Economic Forum when the government told us to stay home because of COVID. Okay, millions and millions of people were going to die. And they were censoring our speech because I was questioning the narrative. Other people were questioning the narrative. And again, we just want to make sure that these platforms are going to allow for free speech. And if they don't allow for free speech, decentralized platforms, okay, like Portal, are being built for free speech, for a decentralized internet. So I just want everybody to kind of, you know, again, just sit with that. Because I do believe this is going to be a big year, especially in the second half for the United States government to try to overturn Section 230. So when we think about what Section 230 is, it was a law that was passed to protect platforms, you know, like Facebook, like YouTube, and the internet, because to moderate people's content is very, very difficult. And if we hold platforms accountable, then more and more censorship will come in. And I think that they're going to sell it in such a good way that everyone's going to be like, absolutely, we need this. Because I remember back in the day, there was a lawsuit against, I think it was called Backpage, and it was led by the people who own the Village Voice, and they were using this internet platform to traffic children. That's illegal. You're breaking a law. Questioning the narrative is not breaking the law. Now, years ago, when the lawsuit was brought up, the people who sued the Village Voice, who had this, you know, this back page, they lost. They lost based on Section 230, that platforms can't be accountable for what people post. But here we are today in February 2023, looking to overturn Section 230. And I think there's critical thinking that needs to be involved here, because there is a difference between breaking the law and trafficking children to, hey, I'm questioning the government. Freedom of speech, breaking the law, two very separate things. And I just wanted to touch base on that because it's a big, big deal that can really shape the way people think, not just for our generation, but for the children's generation to come. I also wanted to talk a little bit about central bank digital currencies this week, especially with the United States, because when I'm looking at the Fed Now payments, the go live date is anytime between May, June, and July of this year. So our financial system is changing. The Federal Reserve Bank is releasing their new payments platform, this new app. At first, it'll be for financial institutions, but you know, what happens if there's an emergency, and wouldn't that be a great time to bridge over to a central bank digital currency for the average American to download this app? And when I posted that video about the FDIC, and they're talking about, should we let the people know about bank balance? Again, super big concern, right? Because all of these things are happening all at once. And when you put the pieces of the puzzle together, it kind of looks like the Federal Reserve Bank and the governments that be have a plan. They have a strategy. So if these bank balance do happen, wouldn't it be such a great time to implement the Fed Now payments? Just something to think about. The other thing that I noticed is that the Reuters is having an event in the middle of June. I believe it's June 12th and June 13th. And when I looked at the panel of speakers, we have the vice president, deputy of the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston with Wells Fargo, Faro Bank, all these different banks, Bank of New York, Mellon. And then we have the head of blockchain and digital assets from the World Economic Forum. And this section of the World Economic Forum is actually based in California. Why is the head of digital assets and the blockchain participating with something so serious within the United States? Is the United States merging with the World Economic Forum? I'm just throwing it out there because how much influence do these people have when we talked about, young global leaders kind of shaping, society, moving forward. And we know that these leaders such as Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Gavin Newsom, they're infiltrated into our government. They're in the cabinets of Canada. They're all around the world, and they're all pushing this global narrative. Very, very concerning, and people need to be educated. Education is so key. And I think with all of this going on, if you are not already your own bank, now is the time to download a trust wallet, download an Atomic wallet, an Exodus wallet, a soft SafePal wallet. Because if bank balance do happen, you want some of your money outside centralized systems. Okay. And then I was listening to the United Nations chief that really seem to be like brother, sister with the World Economic Forum. But this guy, Antonio Guterres, talked heavily about sustainable development goals and like this big push. And this big push of like the East and the West are separating, we need to all come together so that these financial systems like don't collapse. And it makes sense, right? Because even if you look at the amount of debt that the United States is in, we are in more debt than we make money, right? So if I'm a household and if I have more debt than income, I declare bankruptcy. So the United States doesn't have any money. So we just keep printing more debt to pay off the debt to have more debt. So what happens when we start paying, $1 trillion a year to pay just the minimum payments would be almost $1 trillion a year to pay down our debt, something that I really want us to focus on. And again, I think this is going to lead us into like a reset, and that reset should have a component of resetting our dollar to gold. Okay. And this reset is also going to push central bank digital currencies. And we know once this rollout of central bank digital currencies, it's going to come with ties, right? So programmable money that can be put into your digital wallet, but it can also be taken out of your digital wallet. And if we look to see what companies or what countries are adopting this, I want us to look at Nigeria, because 200 million people in Nigeria still refuse to download the central bank digital currency app. And they are choosing Bitcoin over their CBDC. And if you live in Nigeria and you're trying to, you're buying Bitcoin, the demand for Bitcoin has risen so much that when you go on an exchange to buy Bitcoin, you're paying $37,000 for one Bitcoin. Now we know in America, Bitcoin's trading at what, like $24,000? Big difference, because the demand is so strong for privacy, for censorship resistance money. Bitcoin solves that problem. Lebanon, their currency just got devalued 90% yesterday. So again, people in Lebanon are moving towards Bitcoin because Bitcoin solves this problem. El Salvador, we know that El Salvador legalized Bitcoin tender. They had, I think it was an $800 million bond. And that bond has recently matured, and they got a lot of heat from the IMF to not do this. But the El Salvadorian government said, we are doing this. We are putting this Bitcoin in the bonds. The bonds has recently matured, and they paid off their debt to the IMF. So now the El Salvadorian government and its people are free from the International Monetary Fund. This is good news. This is what we want to see continuously going forward, because again, there's always going to be a way to opt out. And the more I sit with all this news and the more that I see these centralized systems, they're not going to stop. They're going to push forward with their agenda. But I can see two systems again emerging. This Antonio Guterres was talking about, he sees like the East versus the West, and two different economies and two different ways of trade are emerging. And I look at it, well, there's a centralized system and a decentralized system that's emerging, and decentralization will always win. You might be able to control the internet and content and money for a little while, but eventually the people will win, because it's really difficult, if not impossible, to control the entire internet. So again, some good stuff going on, some concerning stuff going on, but I think we're moving in the right direction here, even though there's going to be bumps on the road. So I think, for now, we got to just grab our popcorn and we just got to sit with things. And we have to know that once we get through to the other side, we're going to be living in decentralized finance, with a decentralized internet, with decentralized phones, with a decentralized media. I mean, this is going to be a beautiful thing. We just need patience. All right, y'all. So until next week, let's just all huddle on.
Your hosts for Two Women in Crypto are Andrea Caldero and Kelly Lair. You'll find more information and details regarding the Two Women in Crypto membership, educational and informative class and event offerings, and more via their website, twowomeninCrypto.com. Both Andrea and Kelly are available for speaking events and offer private consultations focused on helping individuals navigate the future. Until next time, huddle on.